In 1936, workers in a mud brick house outside Baghdad dug up a clay jar wired like a battery, but archaeologists buried the finding for decades, and the reason why is stranger than the object itself. The house was in Khujut Rabu, a dusty village a few miles from Baghdad. Iraq Railways was laying track. Workers hit stone. Under it, a small chamber, maybe a storage room, maybe something else. Inside sat a terracotta jar, 5 inches tall, nothing special. Until a German archaeologist named Wilhelm König opened it. Inside the jar was a copper cylinder. Inside the copper cylinder was an iron rod. The rod didn't touch the copper. Something had kept them apart on purpose. König looked closer. Traces of corrosion, traces of an acidic residue, the kind you get from vinegar, or wine, or crushed grapes left to ferment. He wrote it down in 1938. Then he stopped talking about it. World War II swallowed the story whole. Here's what didn't add up. Copper and iron separated by an acidic liquid sealed in a jar, that's not decoration. That's a wet cell battery. The same basic principle Alessandro Volta used to build the first modern battery. In 1800, this jar was dated to somewhere between 250 BCE and 250 CE. That's up to 2,000 years earlier. Researchers later built working replicas, filled them with grape juice, vinegar, even wine. Every single one produced a low but steady electric current, somewhere between half a volt and 2 volts. Not enough to shock you, enough to plate metal, enough to run a small electrochemical reaction, in a region with zero written record of electricity. None, not a word, not a symbol, just a jar in a house doing something it shouldn't have been able to do. And that's not even the strangest part. Here's what doesn't add up. If this was a battery, where's everything else? A battery alone is useless. You need wires. You need a device to power. Archaeologists searched the region for decades and found nothing that plausibly connects. No wiring. No bulbs. Obviously, nobody claims ancient Iraq had electric light. The leading theory shifted to electroplating, using the current to coat cheap metal with a thin layer of gold or silver, the same trick jewelers use today. Gilded objects from that era do exist. But no one has ever definitively linked this exact jar to a plating workshop. The evidence sits in an uncomfortable gap, too specific to be nothing, too incomplete to be proven. So why did this vanish from what you were taught? Part of it is timing. König cataloged the artifact right before the world went to war, and post-war archaeology in Iraq slowed to a crawl under new political boundaries and new priorities. But the deeper reason is about what the object implies. Mainstream 20th century archaeology built its entire framework on a tidy ladder of progress, primitive societies below, industrial Europe at the top, each civilization unlocking technology in careful sequence, electricity arriving right on schedule with Volta and the Enlightenment. A 2,000-year-old battery sitting in a house outside Baghdad breaks that ladder. It suggests Mesopotamia, a region colonial-era scholars had already decided was ancient but static, stumbled onto electrochemistry and then just let it go, never scaled it, never wrote it down. That's a harder story to tell than we invented it first. Institutions don't reward harder stories. They reward clean timelines. So the jar got filed as a curiosity, argued over in a handful of academic papers, and left out of every textbook chapter on the history of electricity. Then in 2003, during the invasion of Iraq, looters ransacked the Baghdad Museum where several of these jars were held. Records are incomplete about what survived. If this is real, it means ancient people didn't lack the spark of discovery. They lacked the institutions to preserve it, or someone made sure they didn't get the chance. Either way, the story you were taught, where electricity begins with an Italian scientist and a frog's leg in 1780, was never the whole timeline. It was the convenient one. And if one buried jar can rewrite when human electrical knowledge began, you have to wonder what else got filed away as a curiosity instead of a discovery. Nobody has ever found the missing piece. The device this jar was supposed to power. Maybe it's still out there in another unmarked house, waiting to be misfiled all over again.